Hey everybody, welcome to the Mark Parham podcast. You can follow me on Spotify by typing in Mark Parham podcast and I should pop up. So I just been thinking about, just some of my old habits and things like that. And, what I've realized is that, one thing that everybody should do is sometimes it's good to listen to some new music that normally you wouldn't listen to. And what I mean by that is, most people have the artists they listen to every day, and those are the people that they keep listening to every day. I don't care if it's, let's say, Beyonce, Jay-Z, Taylor Swift, and, you don't realize that you are over the years listening to the same people and the same type of music for decades. And one of the things that I'm starting to do now that's really making me want to listen to music again is now I'm starting to, just go on to YouTube and just, check out random albums, like random albums that might be jazz albums, albums that are rock and roll albums, albums that are pop. Like, it doesn't matter the genre, but now I'm just like, let me try to discover new music. And that's what I mean is like, take some time to discover some new music and things and people that you normally wouldn't listen to. And, I'm actually discovering a lot of things when it comes to jazz and listening to a lot of, different classic albums and stuff like that. And, it's actually making me go down the rabbit hole and listen to more jazz. Like, again, back in the days, I used to listen to Miles Davis, and I, purchased one album. I think it was Kind of Blue. And that album made me go down the rabbit hole of this was like years ago, 10, 20 years ago. And it made me go down the rabbit hole to listen to jazz. And now, I'm listening to John Coltrane and, a lot of other artists. And I'm just, discovering a lot of different people and a lot of new music. And it's really making me want to listen to new music again. Like, I got to a point where, I stopped listening to music, as much as, I used to listen to music. Like back in the 90s, I'd go to the store like almost every weekend to purchase a CD. And now, it's with the music that's coming out now, I'm not really impressed by a lot of stuff that's, being created now as far as, music and different things like that. But, it's given me time to explore some of the, famous artists and people from the 1950s and different rock bands, and just I'm taking the time to actually go back and listen to things that are in the past, like things in the 70s, things in the 60s, things in the 50s. Those were things that I didn't really pay attention to before. And so I would just tell anybody, if you're not happy with music right now, there's tons of stuff to listen to from the past. There's plenty of stuff to listen to. And so you don't always have to be, someone to complain that, the radio isn't playing good stuff, because you always see that. People say, the radio isn't playing good stuff, and they're not, people aren't putting out music anymore. Listen, there's enough music from decades ago that, you haven't even heard or listened to. And so I would just say that to anybody. Start listening to music maybe from the 50s and 60s. And if you're a person who's a creator, or if you're a musician, that actually might inspire you to, start creating better music. I think that, a lot of times you have, a lot of musicians and artists from, right now in 2026 that don't have a good foundation when it comes to music. Like, these are folks where, they look at maybe somebody who has one hit song as, the next Prince or the next Barbra Streisand. And so, when you start going down the rabbit hole and doing your research and educating yourself, you'll see that there's so much great music and people that you never paid attention to. And so that's happening to me, and it's making me want to listen to music again. And, instead of complaining about it, because I got into that rut where it's like, stuff isn't worth listening to. You know what? Sometimes you have to sit up and, do a little research yourself. I think that you have a lot of folks who are, people who listen to music that have gotten lazy. And I've gotten lazy also. Like, we were spoiled in the 90s. Like in the 90s where they put on Mariah Carey and different people back then, and the albums were classic. We were spoiled because we thought, okay, well, this is how the music industry is always going to be. Or this is when we turn on the radio, this is how the radio's always going to sound when you turn on a certain radio station. And, it's not the case. So now with the internet, now you can explore more than ever. And so I'm just having a good time listening to music. And I also want to start expanding my knowledge when it comes to movies. Because, again, the 90s, we were very spoiled with movies and different things like that. But like I say, I'm not necessarily a fan of the new movies that come out now, just like music. I'm not a fan of the new music that comes out now in 2026. And I'm not a fan of the new movies that are coming out. But that gives someone time to say, you know what, I'm going to watch some movies maybe from the 1970s, or discover different things, or research what people are talking about, or what, movies they were interested in. And so, I would say the same advice I given to about music, I would say about movies. Like, take some time, do some research, and you'll be surprised at what you find when it comes to classic movies. A lot of these movies are, in my opinion, better than what's coming out now. Like, even though we have, and same thing with music, but even though we have all this new technology, if you notice, stuff back then, in my opinion, people took time and it was more of an art. And you have a few people now that are creating art and taking their time, but back then, you just had to. Like, you were creating stuff on film. So it was much different. Same thing with music. You were creating stuff on tape. So it wasn't this thing where we're going to sit up and do something over and over again. Now you can just, do a part over and over again 100 times. Back then it was just like, you couldn't do that. And even if you wanted to, it was expensive and it was sort of like a hassle to do. And so, it is what it is. And I would just say take some time to start discovering new things. And the good thing about it is we have the internet, where you can go on Spotify, you can go on, online and YouTube, and you can listen to different music or watch different movies. Like, I remember back in the days where, you had to go to the music store and put on those headphones and listen to the new music and stuff like that. And, now you don't have to waste a bunch of money if you don't like, whatever album or movie somebody's putting out. And so I like that. I really do like that. As someone who's, I'm always, sitting up and watching a movie or listening to some music or something. But I like that you don't have to open up your wallet all the time to, buy an album. And so, that's just my feeling. But, I think if more people watch some of the older stuff, then maybe it would create a better foundation for what they're creating now. Like, you can tell some of these people who create movies and music don't realize that, they're not doing anything new. Like, now, people will sit up and be like, oh, well, this person, came out with this, and this is something so revolutionary and different. And you're like, no, that's something from the 1960s that somebody, did. And so, that's just how I feel. Like I said, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying, don't go out and look at new movies, don't listen to new music, but, start appreciating things in the past. And again, when I just step back and see, because I'm a person where I like to see, okay, well, what type of video cameras did they use? And you look at the video cameras, you look at all this stuff that, was primitive compared to what we have now, and they were able to make such great classic films. Like, you look at what's going on now, and we have all of these modern day tools. We have DSLR cameras and all of this stuff and editing software, and we can't even touch some of these old classic films from the past. Like, it just amazes me. But it's hopefully the entertainment industry returns to how it used to be, as far as people just taking some time in making a classic. I think now it's about how many sequels can you make and how much money can you make very quickly. And I think that's hurting both the music and the movie industry. Like, you even look at an example in music, you look at someone like Drake. Drake is one of the highest earning rap stars, but it's just like he just puts out stuff very quickly, and you can tell it's something where he's not taking time to put something out, like a classic song or anything like that. Like, it's just like almost to the point where let me put out a bunch of music that I know people are going to listen to, and that's it. Like, he's not putting out something where you say, 10 years from now, this is something we're going to be dancing to or we're going to listen to. It's like almost like the here and now. If I can put out something trendy that people will listen to now and then forget about later, that makes a lot of money. A lot of people are taking that path. And it's different from when I was growing up, where someone would take time to make an album. Even back then, you had folks who took time to actually create album covers that were things you would talk about later on. Like some of the album covers and the artwork from back in the days, you would look and say, wow, that person took some time. And those album covers actually made you want to purchase that album or CD. Now it's just like, let me rush something real quick. Let me put a quick black and white photo of a city on the front, and I'm going to roll with that. And then we'll just put in 10 songs. Maybe out of the 10, 5 will be 3 minutes or 2 minutes. And, that's just the industry now. People are now just rushing everything. And just, you always hear the complaints about, well, artists, people aren't going to, on tour. People aren't watching artists go on tour anymore. I watched some mess, where they were talking about that. And it's just like, why is someone going to pay a lot of money to watch an artist on stage when, they're not putting out good music? And on top of that, it's just like they're putting out a product that's rushed. Like, these artists want you to pay, all this money to watch them go on tour and to go to one of their concerts, but they're not putting out something that is timeless. Like, I think that, if artists took some time and put out classic albums and songs like they used to, some of these folks that are complaining, their tours would be packed. Their tours would be packed with people. But now, people have woken up and saying, you know what, why am I going to pay all of this money to hear the same type of songs that we normally would, get from this type of artist? And so, it's a mess right now in both the music industry and the movie industry. And, people can make all the excuses they want and talk about technology and AI and all this other stuff, but people need to get back to making timeless pieces of, content that people want to listen to. You listen to some of those old albums, and, there's old Prince albums where, I find myself listening to a song that I might have listened to back maybe 10 years ago, and it still sounds good. It still makes you want to dance and everything. Now, some of these songs where, they'll sit up and use a title. The title of the song will be a slang word that's popular now. Like, now it's all about, well, can I do something for the algorithm that, let me use a title. The title of a song will be a slang word people are using. Like, it's just all these gimmicks, and it's really a mess, and it's very sad. It's very sad at the day. And artists, especially in hip hop and rap, people have woken up and saying, it isn't worth me even purchasing or supporting this artist. And so even they had some report where they said that rap wasn't dominating the Billboard charts or something like that, like it was in the past. And I'm not surprised. So that's just my opinion on music and movies. And I just hope that one day it gets back to, just people taking time to make classic albums, classic movies. Like, I think once that happens, then you won't have all these problems you have now as far as people not going to the theaters or people not going to concerts. Like, I think that all that'll change when people are given a reason to, spend their money. That's just my opinion. So, like I said, in the comment section, let me know how you feel. But this is just my rant on the music industry and the movie industry. A lot of artists, are not creating things that people want to listen to or watch anymore. It is what it is.